Powered by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's news leader.
Making the president talk. I'm Hanadoba with details on the special counsel leading the Russia investigation, possibly issuing a grand jury subpoena for Mr. Trump.
And with Bozeman's tight rental market, scams are a growing concern. Coming up, police tell how to protect yourself from increasingly sophisticated scam efforts. Good morning, just at 6:30 on this Wednesday. Our top national story this half hour, special counsel Robert Mueller has floated the possibility of subpoenaing President Trump if the president refuses to submit to an interview. CBS's Hanadoba is in New York with that story.
President Trump's former attorney, John Dowd, says special counsel Robert Mueller may try to force the president to testify under oath. Mr. Trump's lawyers have been in talks with the special counsel's office about a possible sit-down interview with the president. Last night, Dowd told the Associated Press that Mueller's team raised the idea of a subpoena during a meeting in early March. This comes after the New York Times published a list of 40 questions that Mueller's investigators want to ask Mr. Trump. In a tweet, the president called the leak disgraceful, but Press Secretary Sarah Sanders later refused to comment.
I'm not going to get into the back and forth on matters involving the special counsel.
Meantime, the Justice Department official who oversees Mueller said outsiders won't be allowed to influence the investigation. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein spoke after some congressional Republicans drafted articles of impeachment against him.
I think they should understand by now the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted.
Even if a grand jury subpoena were issued, President Trump could still refuse to answer questions by invoking his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Hanadoba, CBS News, New York.
Now we're told President Trump's lawyers say they have yet to decide if they'll advise him to sit for an interview with Mueller's team. Closer to home, parts of Missoula remain under flood warning today. Here's some video of the Clark Fork River yesterday afternoon at Kelly Island fishing access in the Target Range neighborhood outside of Missoula. As you can see, the water moving very swiftly, creating small waves in some areas where the boat launch is now underwater. Huge logs, debris can also be seen moving fast in that current. Also, Lewis and Clark County officials say floodwater from 10 Mile Creek continues to be an issue, but has receded slightly over the past 24 hours. Several Helena areas roads remain closed due to the flooding. That waterway in the Helena Trap Club has been opened in an attempt to draw away some of that flood water. And state officials have delayed the opening of Placid Lake State Park and Salmon Lake State Parks due to spring flooding at both sites. Montana State Parks reports that both parks will remain closed until further notice due to public safety concerns. Parks were expected to open May 1st, but high water levels in both lakes have resulted in flooding to park areas and roads. Park staff will continue to monitor the situation. The park will open for the season once public safety concerns have been alleviated. And now at 6:32, as Matt joins us, that's going to take a little time, it sounds
will.
like.
Remember that we've had near record snowfall amounts still hovering in the mountains of western Montana. And of course, that is part of the problem that we have with the flooding concerns. The areas shaded in green there are areas that have at least flood advisories, a few flood warnings out toward Missoula, as we've already mentioned. That's mainly off to our north. We're going to continue to monitor this as our temperatures continue to climb over the next few days. We'll see more flooding potential picking up throughout the month of May and into early June. Temperatures into the 30s right now, the afternoon back into the 50s. It's a beautiful start to the day. Expect these temperatures to continue to climb into the next couple of days. We'll talk about how high they'll soar. That's all coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:33 now. Outside of flooding, our top statewide story yesterday comes from Billings. There, police exchanged gunfire with a man who barricaded himself inside a home on 2nd Avenue North. About 4:30 p.m., parole and probation officers knocked on the door, but the man inside responded by firing multiple shots. Officers fired back and then retreated. The area was cordoned off. Negotiators were brought in along with an armored vehicle. After some 2 hours of negotiation, police used flash grenades and entered the home and took the suspect into custody. Case has now been handed over to the State Office of Criminal Investigation. Also, a man and woman from Butte were given prison sentences yesterday for dealing methamphetamine. Charging documents in federal court say 30-year-old Travis Holly Stevens was given 9 years in prison, 42-year-old Brandon James LeClaire given 14 years for distributing meth in Butte and in Helena. And a scary situation at Montana State University Monday after a suspicious letter sent one MSU employee to the hospital. The blank letter, which was addressed to the Native American Studies Department in Wilson Hall, was delivered just before noon. An employee, whose name has not been released, opened the letter, immediately felt dizzy and nauseous. The employee was sent to the hospital, later released. Now, emergency and hazmat crews responded to the building. Initial testing on that letter revealed no toxic substances. The university determined there was no threat to the campus. No one else felt ill or harmed as a result of that letter. Spokesman for the university, Michael Becker, says while the incident was odd, it was a good test for the university's emergency response.
I think it's a good example of how MSU's safety plans kick into action. Everybody did their jobs and everybody performed very admirably. We called in all the resources we needed to make sure that the campus, the students, and the faculty and employees were safe, and we're happy that at least what happened yesterday in Wilson Hall had a favorable outcome, and we're still investigating, obviously, exactly what caused it.
Becker went on to say the university has been in touch with the FBI and as they await further testing results on that letter. Shifting gears a bit, for many people, searching for homes online is the most convenient, especially if you're an out-of-towner. But as MTN's Caitlin Corbett tells us why renters should beware.
And we're like, oh yes, finally something cheaper than, $1,500. And then, of course, it was cheaper because it's a scam. So.
Finding a place to call home isn't easy. With so many online sites offering rentals in a high-demand market like the Gallatin County, it can be pretty challenging. Just ask Vince and Michelle, a couple from Tempe, Arizona. They were almost the victims of an online scam during their search for a rental in Bozeman. After the supposed owner of the rental requested a cashier's check and promised that the keys to the rental would be mailed to them, Vince and Michelle became suspicious.
So we were questioning the validity of this person, and so we typed in the address trying to find out who owned it and if it was the person whose name was on the email. And then we actually found that the house was for sale and that it had the exact same pictures as the Craigslist ad. So obviously you can't be renting something if it's for sale.
It's something that the authorities keep a close eye on during a busy rental season.
June, July are definitely big months for people trying to rent their places out. So a lot of times what we're seeing now is that there are people that are using that to victimize people looking for rentals.
As you're scrolling through the hundreds of rental listings found online, there will be some scams sprinkled in every here and there. You just have to know how to spot them.
If you've looked around in Bozeman enough, most of the time you know about what the price point is. A lot of these scams will have a much cheaper rental because that draws people's attention right away. Definitely use that as a red flag and don't send anybody any money until you physically went somewhere to view the property with somebody.
Sergeant Munter's other advice is to never give any bank account or payment information over the internet, and if there's an excessive pressure to make a deal, it's probably a scam. Vince and Michelle hope that by telling their story, they can help others from falling victim to online thieves.
It's a scam that people can easily get sucked into. Kind of just wanted to warn people, or at least get it out there that this is a very easy way to get scammed.
In Bozeman, Caitlin Corbett, MTN News.
Mining City headlines this morning. A historic Motherlode Theatre in Butte is selling tickets for an upcoming fundraiser for a new sprinkler system. Butte Fire Marshal has ordered that the 95-year-old theater on West Park Street have to add a fire suppression system and make further upgrades to keep the historic building operational. Now, the theater's operating board hosting a fundraising show called Encore. That's coming up on May 18th, and proceeds from the show will go towards these upgrades.
You get the big whole project done between the fire suppression system, the heating and the cooling, a new sound system. It's going to at least be $500,000. So it's going to be an ongoing effort to raise these funds. We're going to be writing various grants as well.
By the way, tickets for the fundraising show are $75 and can be purchased at the theater box office. Business headlines from the Gallatin Valley. Gibson Brands Incorporated, famous for its world-renowned guitars, announced yesterday that the company is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and hopes to refocus. Court documents state that Gibson could be close to $500 million in debt, but their bankruptcy claim won't affect the acoustic guitar manufacturing branch here in Bozeman. Spokesman for Gibson, Seth Lubov, said in a statement, quote, Gibson has a long heritage of making high-quality musical instruments in Bozeman and continues to enjoy a significant market share. Operations will continue as normal, end quote. Now, due to the bankruptcy filing, Gibson says it will be winding down its Gibson Innovations brand, known for creating Philips brand electronics. And a national truck stop chain continues plans to open a store in Ramsey despite opposition from many of the residents there. Representative from Love's Travel Stops is expected to give details of these plans at Butte's Council of Commissioners meeting this evening. Some residents of Ramsey are expected to be there to voice their opposition. They say the truck stop will bring unwanted noise and crime to the small community just west of Butte. We're going to take a quick break here on Montana This Morning. When we come back, driving between Helena and East Helena soon could get a little safer. We'll take a closer look at the work started on Highway 12. But first, here's a closer look at what's coming up at 7 on CBS This Morning.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, severe weather threatens millions today. We'll go inside a tornado on a research plane hunting storms, how that will help save lives on the ground. And the suspected Golden State Killer is now being investigated for a double murder that sent an innocent man to prison. We'll hear from that wrongly convicted man who spent nearly 4 decades behind bars. We'll see you 7 o'clock on the dot.